What's up? What's up? It is your girl, Miss Cat, your coach, accountability partner, and teacher. And we're here with another episode of Both Sides of the Check. And we just want to say, first and foremost, we thank you so much for tuning in, all the support, all the comments, all the love. And we're going to keep bringing it to you week after week, every single Monday, 6 a.m. Check us out. It's definitely going down. So today, just like any other day, we're about to bring a real topic. And this one is kind of near and dear to me because when I, transitioned out of a 9 to 5, one of the things that I hated the absolute most about working someone's job is a dress code. I think that was the thing that I hated the absolute most. And when I got laid off of my last job 10 years ago, the very first thing that I did was I shaved my head and I got a mohawk. And I actually wore a mohawk. Seriously, I wore a mohawk for a couple of years. Now, granted, Miss Cat was fly, so I had two stylists. I had one person that fluffed my mohawk for me, and I had my barber. Shout out to Jay Casso. Jay Casso used to cut my designs, you know what I'm saying, on the sides. So I was fly, in some regard. And I was that chick, like when I showed up, like people was like, oh, that's Miss Cat with the mohawk. But when I really think about it, like, I think for me, that was just liberation from the, being confined and being controlled of, you got to look like this, you got to dress like this, so on and so forth. And when I became an entrepreneur, I really looked forward to just being able to just be me, dress the way I wanted to dress, whatever. Matter of fact, some of the richest people I know, some of my coaches, my mentors, like literally they could walk in right now. You might think they are a bum and they have more money than everybody in the room combined. So the topic for today is, do you have to dress a certain way in order to be respected as an entrepreneur? And I'm mentioning that because LaShawn and I, we have $1 million client that we're working with right now on a big event. And we went to go meet with him a couple of weeks ago. And this was supposed to be a casual meeting. So we come, jeans, tee, me, Kango to the side, doing my thing. And he was in like a 5-piece suit, right, Sean? Like
he was dressed up.
Like he was dressed to the nines. To the nine. Do you hear me? And this is a casual meeting. And he says something that like, I was like, huh? And he was like, dress the way that you want to be addressed. Dress the way that you want to be addressed. And that kind of like shifted my mindset on the whole, concept of dress code and entrepreneurship. So I said, hey, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. So Sean, what's your thoughts on the matter?
I feel like you should always be presentable. I'm going to say that. Like, I think you should always be presentable. Don't just roll out of bed. Does that mean you have to put on a 5-piece suit every day? No, but just be presentable and also be prepared to take whatever backlash comes along with that, because a lot of times people treat you how you look. So if you have thick skin or tough skin, then go for what you know. But I mean, I just feel like in all things, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. So just being presentable, I think, and knowing where you're going, like using your head, if you're going to like a big time business meeting, you should dress up. And like you said, the meeting that we went to, it was casual. Everybody there basically just had on a polo or what have you, representing their brand, their business, so to speak. So I don't think that anybody at that meeting was out of order. Of course, that was the money team that was coming in, making some decisions on some stuff. So I wouldn't expect them to come in laid back. I wouldn't have expected that from him at that particular meeting. But again, just come in presentable, because you just don't know what opportunities. And as an entrepreneur, every time you leave your house, you're looking for an opportunity, or an opportunity is looking for you.
And that kind of like old, like that makes me think old school. Like there are some parents that like, you bet not ever leave this house. You know what I'm saying? Like a certain way, like, because you never know who might see you, who you might run into,
Yeah.
you know, so on and so forth. So obviously, you know, as an entrepreneur, that doesn't change. You know, you still have to keep that same standard, whether you are entrepreneur or not. But do we get to the point where we're comfortable, like I said, and I'm saying this because I know people in real life. So I'm not saying this, you know, it may not be us per se, right? But do you get a point in your career or, you know, in life where you just like, I don't give a beep, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna do me because like,
But
I
again,
got bread. Like, who cares?
It's some things like that was one of the things that was a plus to you, and that's one of the things with being an entrepreneur. Being successful looks different for different people. One of those things that drove you was the fact that you didn't have to abide by a dress code. You can look how you want. I mean, that could be that can be success to you because you don't have to dress. You know, you can kind of go however you want to go. But then too, again, if you're looking for certain opportunities, then you need to dress for where you're going.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it just depends on the situation. But there's a lot of things when you're an entrepreneur, you know, that you'll be able to kind of like tweak on your own. And dress code just happens to be one of those things.
So I need you to look over here so you can see my devilish grin. Because once I start grinning like this, that means that, you know, I'm about to shake it up a little bit. Yeah. So with that being said, how do you feel about like people that wear all these labels, like basically try to wear their money? You know what I'm saying? Like, does that, and I say that in a way like, okay, I'm an entrepreneur. Like, for example, I wear my piece of chain. Now, to be honest, this ain't even my biggest, baddest chain, but for some, they might be like, oh, she thinks she all that because she got on this chain or whatever, you know, whatever the case. I'm saying that as an example. So when you're in an environment with other entrepreneurs and they're wearing all these labels and all these big chains and this, that, and the third, do you think that sometimes that's you know, kind of hiding the lack of good business in some regard? Like, are they trying to, you know, kind of deflect from, you know?
I think be who you are.
Okay.
If that's what you like, you want to look like that, then be who you are. And I'll give you, I mean, from my own personal experience, like when we first started off, we used to wear a t-shirt with our business on it and just, you know, we didn't have commercial vehicles and stuff. Yeah. And people treated us a certain way. But then when we got our branded polo, we got our Vans wrapped, it's like, people kind of like, you know, it was kind of like, okay, let me stand up and pay attention. So it took our business slightly to the next level. So again, it's about preference and it's about where you want to go. If you want your business to be considered professional, or if you want people to respect you, then you just have to look a certain way. And that too is based on industry. You know what I'm saying?
And not just based on industry, but I think it's also based on your clientele as well.
Right.
Because, and let me like really, you know, get personal. So in the tax space, we have different levels of clientele.
Okay.
You have clients that get refunds. So those are like your lower income, you know, clientele. Then you have your business, like your corporate clients. So you have like C Corps, S Corps, big corporations that have to do their taxes.
Right.
So when you put out marketing for one type of demographic, it looks totally different than what you're going to do. You know what I'm saying? So to be honest with you, if I'm going to go out and market to the people that's going to get refunds, because I know that what are they looking for? The money, the most money that they can get. So I'm pulling up in my chains. I'm pulling up with the whip. I'm pulling up with, you get what I'm saying? Like I'm pulling up in a certain way because to
You're
them,
trying to reach them.
yes, because to them, if they see, oh, she got this, she got that, she's going to get, for whatever reason, in their mind, they're like, oh, she going to give me a big refund. You know, like she's going to maximize my refund. She has money, let them think, you know, whatever. So in their mind, it's like, oh, she's going to maximize my refund. But for a corporate client, they might be thinking like,
you look like a clown.
Or not even a clown. They might be thinking, oh, she's going to take the money, you know what I'm saying, that I'm giving her to go finance, her new
I don't think that people with money are thinking like that. I think people with money, in my opinion, this is just personally, I think that they may be second guessing you because
like why do you have to do all that?
It doesn't show a lot of responsibility. It doesn't show, like what are you doing this for? You know what I'm saying? What are you doing this for?
That could be a perspective.
It just depends on the person. It depends on the client. It depends on where you want to go in life, and all of that comes with experience.
Yeah,
all of that comes with experience. So let me ask you this then: what do you think people should look like when they're going to meet a client, or just trying to just network and market their business on their own in person?
I would say it's based on like where you are, the level of where you are in business.
Okay.
Of how, because like I said, when one gets to a certain status and a certain point, it don't matter. Like it does not matter. Like it don't matter. I don't think that Walmart, whoever, Mr. Walmart gives a care, you know what I'm saying, about how we perceive him, because at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying,
when you made it, you do what you want.
When you made it, you made it. And
okay, what's making it then?
I mean, now that is to each his own, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But I will say that I personally am colleagues with a lot of millionaires. And with that being said, a lot of them do not care what you think about them. And because they're so structured in their business is not going to stop. So I think that's one of the biggest problems, is because to some, you are the face, you're the salesperson, you're the customer service rep, you're the this of your business. So if you get a bad rep, personally, that could shut down your whole business. But in most higher up, and when people structure their business and they're on a different level, their business gonna run, you know what I'm saying, with or without them, whether they show up or not, right?
Yeah.
So if I get clowned down and people like, oh, Miss Cat ain't nothing, she's a clown or whatever, Flat Fee gonna still do what Flat Fee do, right? You know what I'm saying? So I think that I can't measure what made it means, but what I do know confidently, that there is a point in life, and a point as an entrepreneur, where it don't matter what people think. Now, on the flip side though, as a coach and mentor, I do think that there's some type of pressure to have look a certain way, this, that, and the third, because like you said, if you don't show up, jumping out of a Bentley, if you don't, have a certain chain or whatever, now people like,
I'm gonna say this, like sometimes too, well, not sometimes, I have pulled up to countless multi-million-dollar homes and they come flying out of the house looking like you said, just don't care. But they have money.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But they don't want somebody pulling up to their house that's looking like, okay, I'm watching this person, are they gonna steal? So again, it just depends on the setting and how you want people to see you, how you want people to perceive you. So I think that just be presentable and just use your head on what that means when you're going certain places. Like you just gotta use your head.
Yeah.
You can't show up there and, just
your drawers.
Yeah, right.
Your booty shorts.
You just gotta be, you just gotta use your head.
And I think, because I always want to try to add value, especially to the future check writers, to the people that's trying to decide if this is the side of the fence they want to be on, right? I just think that, your first purchase as an entrepreneur should get you a branded polo. You know what I'm saying? Make that your first purchase. Right. So that way, if not for nothing, you got on some clean jeans, your polo, get you some nice shoes, you know what I mean? And do your thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. But yes, I, Miss Cat, do believe there will be a point in life where it don't matter. but most of us ain't there. Let's
We're
just
not
keep
there
it a
yet.
book. Like most of
We're
us
not
ain't
there
even
yet.
nowhere close to that.
But like you said,
you know what I mean?
Just getting yourself that's like the least
yeah,
investment you can invest in your business for
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
just to look presentable.
yes,
Get you a couple polos, you know, if you're doing for me, if I'm doing an outside event, I may want to bump it down and do a t-shirt. You know what
yeah,
I'm saying? But
yeah,
it's branded. It's
yeah.
we're uniform when we show up. So we look like this is a business because people do treat you how you look.
That's
That's
part.
it. People
That
treat
part.
you how you look.
That part. So, and like you said, gauge the setting. You know what I'm saying? Like
sure.
gauge the setting, y'all.
Yeah.
Do some research. If you're gonna go to a networking event, because there are certain circumstances where like you could be overdressed. Like you thinking, oh, I need to put on a 2-piece suit, or I don't know how big suits are because I don't wear suits, but are they 2 or 3 pieces? I don't.
It's both.
It's 5 pieces.
And I mean, but you know what? See, and that's one of the
how many
things
pieces are suits, guys?
That's one of the things that you know with Miss Cat Consulting, you know, that you touch on.
Yeah.
You know, just like
branding.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like that was one of the topics again for, you know, when you had the seminar, when you speaking with people, you just letting them know that there's all types of things, you know, that you need to be aware of. And some people just don't know. They just don't know. So in saying that, like, just let the people know, because there's some people out here that don't know. They can contact Miss Cat Consulting, and she'll let you know.
So, you know, so just to piggyback off of that, and I definitely appreciate, you know, you mentioning that, because as an entrepreneur, it is definitely best that you do think about your brand.
Right.
What do you want people to feel? Like, for example, when you thinking about Nike, just do it, right? You thinking about athletic, you thinking about that. So if I'm a fitness coach or whatever, maybe it might be appropriate for me to show up in some Nike tights and this, that, and the third, because that's how, when people are around me, I want you to feel athletic. I want you to feel the vibe, you know, this, that, and the third, right? So you know, just to really land the plane and just, you know, wrap this thing up, I think that as an entrepreneur, you do need to think about your brand, how you want to be perceived. If you're balling on a budget, just starting off, the least thing that you may want to consider doing is getting you some branded, you know, t-shirts, polos, something, show up, you know, the way that you want to be, you know, addressed, and, you know, how you want people to perceive you, for sure.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that, and again, I think you pretty much sold it up when you said what you said. You sold it up completely. So I think that we can we can leave that as a final note. First of all, just do your work, do your homework, do your homework. If you want people to look at you a certain way, if you want people to do business with you, carry yourself in such a way that's what they want to do. So, and so in saying that, I do think that it matters how you show up to work.
For sure.
I think it matters how you show up.
Until you touch your first million, we not gonna
show up every day like you need a million.
That part, like, we not gonna have this conversation. But if you do want to call me, you can hit me up, connectwithmisscat.com. We can talk about it. But at the end of the day, until you touch your first million, like, seriously, you need to, you know, show up and show out every single day. So I'm Miss Cat, your coach, accountability partner, and teacher.
And I'm LaShonda Don with the Party Palace.
And we're both sides of the check.